Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of MyWealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of MyWealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
Hey there folks, welcome back to the Property Couch Summer Series. Welcome back to you too. Ben, how are you?
Oh mate, I'm great. I love these deep dives into, people being so honest and transparent about what they're doing with organising their household money and, how it can be empowering for them, Bryce.
I agree. The feedback we get all throughout the year, Ben, is that people say, thanks very much for the information, but it's okay for you too. What about other people who are implementing it? Well, that's what Summer Series is all about. Today is no different. We've got a conversation that we recorded a little earlier with Renae. Amazing chat, and amazing for a number of reasons. One, because there's a real money transformation story, but two, there is a backstory around financial stress, money as a stressor. And you really get to hear that from Renae when she's chatting through this this interview about what it used to be like, and importantly, what the transformation's like now, so that money is no longer a stress. So
yeah, I think there's something really smart about this story, because the other feedback we get is, this is only for people on high incomes, time poor professionals. Oh, no, it's not. And I think you'll learn, with Renae living in Tasmania and her partner Nick, that they're just making it work with modest incomes, but also not missing out. I think that's a real lesson here, and I really love how she shares that story. So I think we've got to get it on, Bryce.
I agree. Let's cut to the interview that we had with Renae Brandsema. All right, Ben, today we've got a very special guest on our summer series. I'm very excited to chat with this particular person. Her name is Renae Brandsema. Welcome to the Property Couch, Renae.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
It's exciting for us because the summer series is all about financial transformations, and you've been a brave soul to come on and talk about your financial transformation, which is really, really exciting. And the whole idea is people will be able to listen to this, they'll be able to hear your story and parts of it, or in some cases, all of it for a few people. They will be able to relate to that, and hopefully they'll get some real takeaways from that. But let's kick it off. Can you tell us a little bit about your money backstory? So what was money like in the household for you growing up?
Sure. So I grew up with two parents who are still together and a older brother. Our family makeup was pretty stock standard, pretty boring, nothing to see here sort of a family. But as far as money was concerned, my dad, I would say, would be the person who really set the backdrop for money in our household. He's a conservative guy, and he's, I guess, always worked really hard for his money. But he's also a really generous person. But he's also, I often laugh because my husband's Dutch, and Dutch can sometimes have a reputation for being a bit tight. But I think my dad would challenge anyone because he's aware of where all the dollars go. And so, yeah, growing up, we were certainly frugal, I guess you would say. Not many lavish holidays, or we went on holidays from time to time, but still to this day haven't been outside of Australia. So that's something. But it was just modest income. My mum has a few health issues, so she didn't work much growing up, sort of a few casual jobs here and there. But so my dad was the main breadwinner, and it was always, I guess, a story of you've got to watch where your money goes and make sure that there's not too much lavish spending and that sort of thing. So that really set, I guess, my mindset, which I still probably have to this day. But so he was the main person to, I guess, set the money tone in our household.
Can we stay on that topic for a second, Renae, and talk about two things? One is, how often was money discussed? But before that, what about his backstory in terms of his family and where did they come from, and where did he learn his traits for being careful with money, and potentially be rather skeptical about the world?
Yeah, not sure about his actual money, I guess how he was exposed to money growing up. He's quite a private person. There's a bit of a joke with my husband because my dad's mother's name was Elaine, and Dad was often saying that, like, my nan was a very private person and Dad's a very private person. So he's happy to talk about money within the household, but he often says, "Oh, just keep that here, keep that to us," sort of thing. And so, yeah, my husband calls me Elaine from time to time to sort of say, you know, "You're being a bit too private, Renae." So, yeah, money was, I guess maybe, yeah, he's sort of got that from his family as well, that just you keep things, cards close to your chest. I don't really know why that is, but yeah, sort of close to your chest, still generous where you can be, but you sort of, yeah, keep your money cards to your chest and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I guess he inherited that from his family. But as far as his actual money story, his ethos, I guess you would say, on money, I'm not exactly sure. Not particularly low in wealth or high in wealth, just middle of the road sort of thing, his family, and then, yeah, my family himself as an adult. So, yeah.
So given that conservativeness and the frugality there, clearly that was, you know, you said a second ago that's had an impact on you to this day. Were you happier being that conservative, frugal sort of mindset as well, or was there was there a conscious effort that you wanted to break free from that? What was your sort of end goal with respect to your own money management?
Yeah, I guess no, in the sense of I could see that it worked, and I could see that we were never living for today sort of thing. We were conscious that, you know, you might spend your money today, but it's not going to be here tomorrow. So I think I could see that was the wise way to live, so to speak. And so I was happy to adopt that. I've never been a lavish spender. My husband and I recently just went to Hobart and went for a little bit of a shopping spree. We had a few things we needed to get, and my husband just laughed at me because we just walked in and out of shops, and I'd just walk in, walk straight back out, and after a whole day of shopping, I bought a pair of socks, and that was it. So and he'd spent hundreds of dollars. So I'm quite happy to keep the spending to a minimum, and I think I admired the way that my dad modelled money. I think probably I could loosen up a little bit, and I'm trying to loosen up a little bit as I get older, because you want to enjoy life at the same time. But yeah, no, I really wanted to, yeah, I guess I admired how he handled money, and so I wanted to be the same.
So Renae, just on that point, I mean, I have a legacy piece in my backstory around, you know, my dad being very, very stringent with money as well, and adopting, you know, that sort of value, need, want assessment. What is it, you know, so with what you've observed and how you now act, when you do go into a shop and you see something, does it need to present a value opportunity for you in terms of how you can justify making that? Or are you a bit like me where you walk around still today with, you know, holes in your socks, but you still think they're viable because 90% of the sock is working? But just because there's 2 holes in the sock, you can get away with it for another 6 months, right? Because it's not essential. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm probably in the middle. Like, it's funny. I actually just hung out a few pairs of socks, and I've got a few matching sets. So one's got a hole. One set has a hole in one of them, and the other set has a hole in the other. So I'm going to throw the 2 holes out so I can make another set. So I'm not sort of just like, oh well, there's a hole. See you later. That, you know, we need to go and buy something else. So I'm measured in the way that I spend money, but hopefully not too tight either. If I need to spend money on something, I'm more than happy to. I just I walk into shops and go, oh no, maybe I'll see something I like better in the next shop. So then I go back out, and then in the next shop I say the same thing, and then by the end of it, it's 5 o'clock, the shops are shut, and I've bought nothing. So probably just a bit indecisive is probably more my problem.
So it's a hell yeah moment, like I want that, like that sings to me, and you will buy it, as opposed to, there's probably a little bit more rational thought as opposed to irrational thought. Okay.
Yeah, try to be as rational as I can be. Yeah.
Yep.
You mentioned you're married. You mentioned Hobart, so you live in Tasmania. I'm sure you've been overseas though. You've been to the mainland, even though you haven't
been to the big smoke. Been to the mainland a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about the transition from being under your parents' roof and then obviously moving into under your own marital roof, was there a problem then? Was money working okay for you? I guess the norms that you brought into the relationship. Were they any different to the norms that your husband brought into the relationship? And did it provide any, was there synergy? Was there conflict? Was there somewhere in between?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky in the sense of I was always going to be the person who handled the money because I was the stressor about the money, I suppose. And when I first started dating my husband, we often laugh because he'd started work. He was a couple of years into a full-time job, not huge wage, but he was living at home and he had a small loan for a car and he was just paying the minimum off that. And I came in going, what are you doing? Like, you could bowl that over super quick if you just put, you're living at home, you don't have any expenses. So I made him up the repayments, and after a couple of months, it was all totally paid off. I think it was only like a $5,000 loan or something very small, and he had it paid off within a few months. But, I guess, yeah, he's sort of just like, oh, it'll be right sort of thing. So I was always going to be the person who handled money, but he's more than happy for me to be the handler of the money, and he never really had a big interest in it. So, yeah, there was never really any conflict in the way we handled money, just because he was happy for me to sort of take the reins and go with it. And he could see that it was working. So, yeah, when he finally paid that loan off, he went, oh, wow, it's gone. I said, yeah, it is. Thank goodness. So, yeah, there wasn't really any conflict. It's more just he sort of reminds me to loosen up a bit every now and then, just because, he's more than happy to spend money on memories and on things that he sees value in, and I just sort of have to be reminded to let the reins go a little bit every now and then. But yeah, so no real conflict, no.
So tell us about the early years of you managing your money. We know the backstory there around the number of bank accounts, but tell us how did anyone teach you or coach you about how to set up your banking or do any of that, or was it sort of just trial and error at your end?
Probably just trial and error, because as much as I saw the way my father handled money, I guess just because when I was sort of becoming an adult, it was the whole internet banking, all that sort of thing, was coming in. So I guess he didn't really have that option. So I didn't really see how my dad structured the finances. As far as I could tell, it was all just one big bank account where the money, or medium bank account, small bank account, where the money went into. And he was a traditional go to the ATM, get the cash out for the week sort of a man, which I knew I didn't want to do. So that was just sort of trial and error on my behalf. So, yeah, and then before I knew it, I had 12 bank accounts open. I remember when I opened the 12th one, or maybe even the 10th one, the person on the phone said, oh, I'm going to have to escalate you to my supervisor because I'm not actually allowed to open that many bank accounts for someone. So I had to go up to the supervisor to get that many bank accounts. I was and that was my way of doing, I guess, jumping ahead to the money smarts, that was my way of doing the virtual jars. I just had actual jars of, this bank account's saving for the registration, and this bank account's, our petrol account, and this account's our, grocery account. And yeah, it was a bit out of control.
And were you getting charged, on 12 accounts, I suspect you're probably getting a $5 on some of them and a $10 on another. So it was also potentially eating away at your hard earned stuff.
Yeah, it was. Some of them were free, but some of them certainly had fees. And when I first set up my finances in the portal on Money Smarts, I put bank charges and fees or something as an amount. But then I realised once I'd swapped everything over, I wasn't getting that anymore. So I could luckily get rid of all that. But yeah, it was costing me money. So, and because some of those would then get go into the negative, you'd get charged the $10 fee for going into the negative. And so, yeah, it creeps up on you, those sort of fees and charges for sure. Mm.
Before we get to the money smarts, with the 12 accounts, was the system working for you in general? Like, how was that approach? Like, you'd obviously didn't start out to have 12, but it sort of morphed into that. But was there a point where you thought, this is actually okay, or there's got to be a better way?
Look, I wouldn't say it wasn't working for me. It was more of a fact of I didn't know that there was a better way. So I was certainly getting by with it like that. And I am, because get a little bit stressed or anxious about money, I was always fearful that there'd be a bill come in that I couldn't account for, or just the idea of having one big bank account for me, that stressed me out because I couldn't decide, well, how much of that is for this and how much of that is for this. And so I would rather divvy it up, which to a degree, it did work for me until I realised that there was a much, much better way. But yeah, I think it was my attempt of taking control and taking the stress out of money. But I mean, even with the 12 bank accounts, you were always, robbing Peter to pay Paul sort of thing. Like you were still, this bill's due, so I'm going to take some money from the registration account to pay this bill. And then, you're always playing catch up. So even though I had all those accounts, it wasn't as if they were always full all the time. But yeah, it was my one attempt to try and, I guess, put peace around my money.
And do you think, Renae, you can put a time on how long it took you to sort of keep your banking affairs running either week to week or month to month? Like, was it something that you often had to log into and move things around and think about a lot, or was it no, actually, because it was in buckets, which is very common? I mean, what you've done normally you'll see a lot of people advocating for 6 or 7 or 8, and you also understand the origins of lay-by, right? And that was the other way. And then there was Christmas funds, and people do need to take it away from themselves, because in a lot of cases, there's a trust element in terms of whether I can trust myself if it's in the main bank account, and then they can make irrational decisions on the spot because the money's there. So coming back to the question is, time consuming. Was it relatively time consuming for you?
Well, it was only because as my part-time job, now that I'm on maternity leave, I do the finances for my in-laws and my husband's business. So reconciling and that sort of thing is embedded in my thinking, and I wanted to put that around my personal finances once again, because I needed to know where the money was going, and I was stressing about that. So I did actually, I had a reconciling system. I tried to get Xero. They used to have a Xero personal.
They did, yes.
They got rid of it before I got onto it. But it said on the website what they recommended, something similar. So I got onto that, and for a couple of years I reconciled my bank accounts, but I didn't do it frequently. And so, every 6 months I'd log on and it would say, you've got 3,000 transactions to reconcile. And then I'd think, oh my goodness. So the next few days I'd be sitting there going, yes, that was for petrol. Yes, that was for groceries. But it did serve me in the sense of when I went to set up Money Smart, I knew exactly what I'd spent on groceries for the past 12 months. I just pulled up a report that said, you've spent this on groceries, you've spent this on petrol. So it certainly still worked, but it was very time consuming. And now, where I am now, I just know I don't need to have that level of detail around the finances. But yeah, so that was quite time consuming. And I also set up a lot of direct debits previously, because I was just worried about that bill just coming out and scaring me, sort of thing. So I've actually just recently changed our insurance over from monthly direct debits to on the credit card. And she said, you realise you're paying a lot more for this to be paying monthly. And I knew I was paying a little bit more for that, but I didn't realise how much for. I think she knocked $150 off from per annum from going from monthly amounts down to the annual amount on the credit card. So I guess I was willing to pay that for the peace of mind because I was so worried about money.
Renae, you've said stressor a couple of times. You used the word worried there. Can you just sort of give us a little insight into your mind? What was causing the stress, and how would that impact you day to day and your family?
I think I was, the stress impacted me because I wasn't sure where the goalposts were. And so I think when you're not sure where the goalposts are, you're either a person that just goes, oh, well, it doesn't matter then, and throw your hands up in the air, or you're the sort of person who just keeps an eye on every dollar. So I guess we'd see other friends, married couples that were probably on similar incomes to us spending, money left, right and centre. And I'd say to my husband, Nick, like, no, we don't have money for that. We don't have money for that. And to be honest, I wasn't sure whether we did have money for that or not. I just assumed, because I didn't know where the goalposts were, that we didn't. And so we just didn't spend. Even though we didn't spend, the money still seemed to disappear somehow. So I'm sure we still spent it on something. But I guess that's how, the stress sort of got to me, is we just kept it as tight as possible. Yeah. Was
that the trigger to look for something else out there? I mean, hence, as you said, you've got an app or a tracking tool that's sort of measuring everything, but it's time consuming. Mm-hmm. What was it about? Is it just curiosity or anything that sort of, led you to think about, is there anything else out there? Is another opportunity to do this better? You mentioned a moment ago about a direction or a plan or an end destination. What was it that sort of got you across the line?
Well, it wasn't, like I said, I kind of thought that what I was doing was working for me. So I wasn't necessarily looking for another way to do anything. So I didn't find money smarts first. I found the property couch first. And then that led me to, it's sort of one of those things you don't know until you know, until someone tells you. And so, I thought that what I was doing was the best and it was the best I could do at the time with what I knew. And I still think I was being diligent with my finances, especially sort of, you look around and see what people are spending their money on. And I thought I was being as diligent as possible. But then when you realise there's actually a smarter way to go about it. So, I didn't find money smarts first. I found the property couch first. I was actually, my friend had just had a baby and I had to drive about 40 minutes to the hospital to see her, and I was in the mood for something financy. So I think I just typed in finance into podcasts and it came up with the property couch, and I started listening from there and then binged a lot of episodes, about 3 years of episodes in a very short amount of time.
Let's apologise for that right now, for all of that sort of, harm we've done to your mind in terms of listening to buffheads. Ratted on about footy and all these other things.
At least it's not NRL. I think it was NRL. I would have probably zoned out, but so I can at least understand a little bit.
Little shout out to our New South Wales and Queensland listeners. But so what was it that you wanted? What was you hoping to achieve by listening to something financy at that point in time? Because were you at a point where everything was, you had stress, but you had the 12 accounts? Was there something that you were reaching for at that point, or you just think, gosh, I just need something to fill this 40 minutes? I mean, was there something more than that?
Well, I've always been that way inclined. I've always been wired for finance. It's quite frustrating, actually. I wish I'd realised that in high school, because I really could have, grabbed hold of that and probably would have studied something different at uni. But I didn't realise that was the way I was wired. I actually think back to I must have been probably 10 or something like that. It was when Donald Trump, of all people, when The Apprentice first came on TV. And I remember I was probably a 10-year-old kid and I had a little pin board in my bedroom and I was writing down how much allowance I was getting each week, and I had a car amount and how much I would have to save for a house, and I was thinking about how long it would take me to save for a house and a car, and I got quite depressed because I was probably on $5 a week allowance, so I gave up on that. But it's always been sort of in me, so I think I just enjoy that. I enjoy listening to that sort of thing. I enjoy making finances better and trying to improve that. So I guess it just sort of speaks my language, which is why I thought, no, that this is what I'm in the mood for. So yeah.
What was the aha? You listened to us, you listened to a number of episodes, and then where was the point where Money Smarts actually came on the radar, and then the point where you thought, well, I better check this out?
As far as the actual Money Smarts, I mean, obviously the property foundationals were the first thing to embed in me, and I'd always been sort of interested in that. My sister-in-law had sort of sparked a bit of interest in property in me, so I was interested in that. But we actually had a property plan done, and it wasn't until I realised, hey, if I'm going to do this and if I'm going to invest in property to set up our future, I actually need to keep a track of our finances in the best way, not in the micromanaged way. That whole idea of, instead of, we were sort of living with, I guess the amount of money would come in and then we'd spend, and then, the small amount would go to the savings at the end of the day, rather than actually, now it all goes into one big lump sum, and that is my savings, and then I only portion out what I need. So that was the change in the way I managed it. But once we got the plan done, I realised, hey, we really need to have a way of managing our money that's better than what I'm doing now. I can keep track of the surplus better and grow that surplus.
Yeah, we'll take us to, so you obviously implemented the primary account, which means that you go from 12 accounts down to one, and you touched on the virtual jars before. Where was the biggest change for you once you've adopted the system? Where was the biggest change to yourself personally, and what impact did it have on your relationship with your husband?
Well, I remember when I first told my husband how we were going to manage our finances. And like I say, he's pretty crazy. He was happy for me to do whatever. But when I first explained, the jars and that we would be having a living and lifestyle float and that sort of thing, initially I could see he was a little bit skeptical because he straight away thought, oh, well, that means, we're going to have even less money than what we had before. But then when I said, okay, well, tell me, like, what would you like to spend per week on, buy lunch once a week, or what do you want to spend on? What do we think is an agreeable amount that we would spend on takeaways and that sort of thing? We sorted all that out. And then when he realised that it wasn't actually more restrictive, it was actually just acknowledging what we think is fair to spend and then just sticking to that and keeping ourselves accountable. I remember he looked at me and goes, oh, this is actually quite fun. So we don't call it the living and lifestyle jar, we call it the kitty. And so he says, how much is in the kitty and have we refreshed the kitty this week? Once he saw that it wasn't restrictive, and once I saw that it wasn't restrictive, it was actually us determining how much, money was in that sort of thing. And the same with the provisioning. And because I had previously reconciled all my accounts, I knew what we had spent on, medical needs and that sort of thing in a year. And so I knew roughly what I needed to put into those provisions. And then, I'm not worried when a medical bill comes in, that's an average medical bill, because I think, no, I know that we've got the money for that. I know that we've got the income to cover that. So, I'm happy to spend the money on it. So I remember I listened to one of the summer series, I don't know if it was last year or when it was, but one of the women you were speaking to said that she just knew that she wanted a pair of shoes or something, and she went out and bought that pair of shoes because she knew she'd provisioned for it. And I'm the same, I've been looking for a particular pair of brown boots for a couple of years now, and I still haven't found the exact ones, but I know that when I find them, I'm going to be able to buy them because I've provisioned for that. I've said I'm going to spend a certain amount on clothing, and, if I haven't spent that yet, then I can guilt-free go and buy those things because I've provisioned for it, and I don't have to stress that means I'm not going to be able to pay a bill later on down the track. So
you've been able to, it's very clear in the way you're speaking that the level of confidence you now have around, designing a plan and having a plan, but as someone who's careful with their money, and you've sought some advice that we know about, obviously you've worked with our business. The investment that you make in that and the investment that you make in yourself, how is that decision negotiated for someone who is careful with money in terms of having to spend it to get the advice, and then ultimately in terms of how you financially transform is you actually have to spend money to make money. In other words, you cannot save your way to a comfortable retirement. Even your super is invested somewhere. So, and especially where interest rates and sort of savings returns are today, what got you over the line for you to sort of say this is why we are making this investment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're not on a particularly lavish income, you're not, you don't have a couple of lawyer incomes or anything like that, you kind of think, oh, well, it's a bit counterintuitive to be spending money on advice because you think I should be saving this. And so, then I think the thing that got me over the line is that I knew that we could do a free consultation and sit down and have a chat, and there was no strings attached. We could just get a feeler for it. And it was really important to have my husband there at the same time, because as much he trusts me with the money, at the same time, we're a team and we're a couple, and we need to be both confident that especially if it's big money, we need to make sure that we know we're spending it in the right place. So he was a part of that initial consultation. So it was all outlined. The fact that it was all outlined, and I knew what we needed to spend on the advice. It wasn't and then this is going to come out of the woodwork, and then this is going to be a surprise amount. I knew what we needed to pay. By far, it is the best money, the wisest money that we have ever spent, because before I had no idea where the goalposts were. We were just guessing where we needed to be spending our money, but now I know if we're on track, if we're not on track. So as much as it, you can think, oh, gee, that's a lot of money that I could probably, and it's not really a lot of money in the scheme of things, but you think, oh, that I could add that to my savings. But the fact that advice, I'm not trained in it, and so I can't come up with that advice myself. I need professionals to be able to tell me, where I need to spend my money and that sort of thing. But I looked at my husband after the meeting, like we closed the laptop, and I said, how do you feel? And he said, yep, 100%, go for it, because he felt the confidence in the fact that spending that money was actually going to get us ahead. And my goodness me, it's the best money that we've ever spent. It is a lie to tell yourself, and I understand it, because if you're strapped for cash from week to week, I understand that it can be very hard to go, well, we're actually going to spend money on some advice when you think, no, I need to save that. I totally understand that. But my goodness me, when we got to that point where we could have that money to spend on that advice, it was the best thing that we ever did, for sure.
Renae, do you still describe yourself as a stressor around money now, or has that changed?
Oh, I don't need to be a stressor about money anymore. Yeah, I mean, it's still my personality to worry about money, for sure. That'll probably always be ingrained in
A
me.
work in progress.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress, for sure. I'm a type 1 personality in progress, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't need to. And the best thing is that now that we've got a plan done, I know what our offset account should be sitting at. And at the moment, we're ahead. And so I just think, I don't need to stress about money, because I know we're ahead of the game. We're putting in more than what we even need to, more than the bare minimum. And so I know, what's there to stress about when you know that you've provisioned for all of the bills? Like I've provisioned for every bill that I can think of that would possibly come in. And I know that even paying all of those bills, we've still got surplus at the end of the day. So, there's no need to stress. So no longer a stressor. Recovering stressor.
You make the critical decision that you're going to invest in getting advice. Now, what was the fun bits about the process? I mean, was the goal setting and the planning and all that a lot of fun, or was it stressful? Like, in terms of really being ambitious about when you want to hit certain milestones and the money you need for those milestones and thinking about children and education and all of those types of things. What was that enjoyable to be thinking about that, for you and Nick, or was it more of, no, we did need a lot of guidance in organising our thoughts around our goals, or did you feel really comfortable that you had those goals lined up and ready to go?
I didn't find it stressful. I think I was probably a little bit worried at the start when we were setting our goals. I think I was a little bit worried that the plan was going to come back negative. I guess because bit of a Tasmanian mindset, you get used to being the poor little cousin down that gets left off the bottom of the map. And because we have lower incomes down here, but we also have lower expenses. So, it's all relative, isn't it? And because I was on maternity leave, that I wasn't, and even my job previous to that was a lower paid job because it was a bit more of a volunteer type role. I was paid for my role, but it was a bit more for the conviction and the enjoyment of the job and giving back to, it was a community type job. So we were never on big incomes. It was, my husband was the main breadwinner, and, mine surplus little bit, sort of just added to the pile. And so I straight away thought, it's not going to come back good. They're going to tell us that, thanks for trying, but your incomes are just way too low to be able to do anything. And luckily, you talk about income, expenditure, time and target. Time is definitely on our side, which has really, really helped us. But yeah, I was worried that, I thought, we're not going to be able to achieve $2,000 a week, passive income. That's just a pipe dream. But, if we can shoot for half of that, I'll be happy, sort of thing. But yeah, I think because time's on our side and we're being as frugal as we can be with our spending, it came back, saying that we could absolutely achieve that. And so that blew me out of the water. So I think from then on, I found it 100% enjoyable. I think I put the feelers out at the first meeting to go, are we going to be able to do this, getting ready for disappointment. And when I realised, no, it actually is going to be achievable, from then on, it was super enjoyable to set the goals and to know, okay, well, in, X amount of years, we do want to upgrade our car, and we're not going to kid ourselves to go, we're going to drive around in a bomb for the rest of our lives. We want to upgrade this car, and this is when we're going to do it. And we can factor that in and still be able to achieve our dreams. We can still send our kids to private school and still be able to achieve our dreams. So, it was really rewarding. Yeah.
Listening to your story, Renae, gives Ben and I an enormous joy and pride that we are able to speak into people's financial lives, and it makes a difference. So that's exciting. But I guess you talked about paying for advice, and that's great. But in implementing Money Smarts is actually free, right? You can actually do it for free. What would you say to the next season of people? So you listened to last year or the years before summer series, and it gave you a bit of a spark or an aha. What would you say if if you visualize speaking to another Renae who's listening to this right now who might have some reservations or have some challenge? What would be the reason that you would say that they should implement Money Smarts as a system?
Because it takes the guesswork out. That's the biggest thing. It takes the guesswork out of it, and it takes the stress out of it. And when you actually understand, the nitty gritty of the fact that, you're paying for something on the credit card for 55 days interest free, you're borrowing the bank's money to save you interest on it all just makes sense. And until you read the book, until you understand that, until you understand the system, I get that. Yeah, you need to read it to actually be able to understand that. But as far from a first conversation, I would just say, look into it and do your research on it, read the book, because it will take the stress out of it. It takes the guesswork out of it. And when you know where the goalposts are, for me, it just, totally took away the stress and the anxiety around money, because I knew where the goalposts were. I no longer had to be as tight as anything, really, really tight with my finances, because I knew that we could afford things. And so it lets you enjoy life, because it wasn't really much fun watching other people go on holidays and saying, no, we cannot go on any holidays. We need to save all our money, because when we are on holidays, I can now enjoy it and go, no, we've worked hard for this. I've provisioned for this. This isn't stopping me from getting to my goals, because I know that I can still achieve my goals and do this along the way. So, takes the anxiety out of money for sure.
Nice. Hopefully that serves some people who might be thinking about that. Now, can we dive in a little bit? The 7-day float, which is the living and lifestyle account, you call it the kitty. Can you let us know under the bonnet a bit on that? What day do you pay yourself? And how long did it take for you and your husband to implement it and then get the run rate nice and smooth so you weren't overs and unders? Give us a little bit of insight to how it works for you personally.
Yep. So because my husband has his own business, we decide when we pay ourselves. So we've decided that that's on a Thursday. I'm usually in the office doing the books. So I pay us on a Thursday, and then pretty much goes into our account straight away. And then the living and lifestyle either will get transferred I still haven't set up the automatic payment. I need to do that, because I could just have it set to be a Thursday night. So Thursday night or Friday morning, because usually Fridays is the day that my mother-in-law has our son. So that's grocery day, that's get all the errands done type of day. If not by Thursday night, then Friday morning we transfer the money. To be honest, we're still sort of ebbing and flowing a little bit. Sometimes we've got surplus, sometimes we really do. We dip into, I need to transfer $20 here or there for a bit more bread and a bit more milk or whatever. So it's still a little bit of troubleshooting to make sure we've got the right amount. It's that balance between making sure you've got enough, but not making sure you've got too much, because then you just become accustomed to spending unnecessarily. So we're sort of probably, still walking that line a little bit.
Do you try and recover, let's say if you do have an overs month, an overs week, do you try and then recover that in terms of your overall annual target, because you've got a choice, right? Ultimately, if you're $50 over for that month, or $10 or $20 over for that week, you can forego that off your overall annual surplus target, or you can tweak it to sort of recover that $50 over, say, the next 3 weeks, where you can because you're manually doing your 7-day float transfer. Have you attempted any of that, or do you just take the knowledge that interest rates keep going down, and so there's more money than you expected to have on your forecast, that you're winning anyway?
Yeah, a little bit of both. There's certainly times where, like my husband the other day took my car, because it's got the car seat in it, and he took my son, and it had no petrol in it. So he went to the petrol station, put petrol in it. But he filled up the whole tank, whereas I only do $40 every week, because I know that I need but because we pay ourselves weekly, I only ever put $40 in it, and he finds that super frustrating, because he's not the car. What have you done? You put $80 of fuel in. So obviously the next week I didn't need fuel, so I just transferred a little bit less. So there is that sort of keeping track and ebbing and flowing a little bit. But because I know that we're so far ahead at the moment. So far sounds super dramatic, but we're really comfortably ahead at the moment. There's sort of a little bit of wriggle room, and to be honest, I've probably set it a little bit low, so it's probably more that I need to maybe realistically up that living and lifestyle amount. But there is a little bit of, I'm trying to pull back here and there.
Can I give you a tip?
Absolutely.
on the petrol?
Mm-hmm.
Pay for that on the credit card. Now,
Okay.
we talk about that in the book in the sense that it doesn't have a traditional value each time, because obviously fuel prices go up and go down. But remember, it's an annualized system. And if you've got a fair idea in terms of the travel that you're going to do, then the reality is you'll get the 55-day interest-free period on the fuel, and it won't distort if, Nick goes out and buys $80 worth of fuel versus the 40 that you set yourself. So it's definitely one of the ones that we do encourage people to say, pay that on the credit card, but don't go into the shop and, there's a tuck shop here and I'll grab a pie and a Big M or I'll grab the latest new idea or whatever. That's the slippage bit. We are just talking about the fuel because it's a regular bill, and if we've annualized that out, that's basically how it would work. Now, if anyone's thinking about this listening in the community and they say, well, what about long road trips and, holidays that we do? That's another example of that is not what you would assume as regular travel. And so that fuel should be provisioned for in your holiday account. So even if you go for a short stay or a weekend away or whatever, even, if you buy breakfast or something like that, that should be out of the holiday provision fund, because that's not your regular routine. And that makes life a lot easier in terms of these moments where you've got to do these adjustments, because we're trying to make this $10, 10 minutes a month type program that could be helpful for you.
No, that's great. I'll put it on the credit card for sure.
Hey, Ben mentioned the slippage there. That was one of my questions. Where the enemy of most people's budgets or their money management isn't, and we've said this so many times, but it's worth reinforcing. It isn't going out and making a big purchase on a new household item or television or whatever. The slippage is actually in the everyday. IGA for $7, chemist for $17. So my question to you is through doing your kitty, through doing the float, has that actually changed the behaviour? And it sounds like you guys were very frugal before, but has that actually helped to stop some of the slippage, given that the lanes that you need to swim in?
Yeah, absolutely. Because chemist, for example, is something that we have to buy some medications every month. And so we'd always run out at the most inconvenient time where we had no money left. We were waiting to get paid. This was before my husband had his own business. So waiting to get paid, needed this medication. And whereas now, like medications and just general medical bills is factored in. So I know I don't have to worry when medications run out. We just go straight to the chemist and it's factored in. Other things that we often would slip on are things like you go to, I'm trying to think of what you would call it, like your $2 shop type of place. We have a place in Tasmania called Shiploads, and it's just like a discount sort of warehouse place that, you think, I really need to organise that cupboard. So you go and buy some storage boxes. Well, they're, $10 each and you need 3 of them. Before you know it, there's $30 gone. So we have like just a general sort of, I can't remember what I've called it, but it's sort of just a house maintenance sort of allocation in our float that, I know that I'm going to spend a certain amount. I don't know exactly because it fluctuates a little bit, but in reality, I'm going to spend some things. You're going to go to Bunnings and you're going to get bits and pieces that you need. So I've factored an annual amount in for that so that, I don't have to feel guilty if I go to Bunnings and think, that really, that's now coming off the grocery bill, because it's not coming off the grocery bill. I've factored that in.
Did you factor that into the provisionings jar, or did you factor that into the living and lifestyle 7-day float jar?
Sorry, into the provisions.
Oh, great. Yeah, good. So for those who are studying the system, they'll be like, did you put that in the 7? So I just wanted to clarify that. But
No. I used the wrong word. Yeah, no, we've provisioned for it in the provisions jar. A maintenance amount. Yeah.
And so when you do the the next question is when you do the monthly checkup, is it taking you 10 minutes a month?
Well, see, monthly checkup. So we've only just recently swapped over in full. So we refinanced our home loan, did the property plan, we refinanced our home loan. We finally got an offset account. I've never, ever in my life had a credit card, and I've sort of been raised that credit cards are of the devil, and it's a long time to get on the credit card train of thought. But I've just been recently swapping everything to the credit card. So I'm probably I'm one of those, I don't do it until it's perfect, which catches me off guard. I should really be doing the credit card checkups as we speak, even though not everything's swapped over yet. So I haven't been doing the monthly checkups. And also because this year's been so out of whack, I know that our spending is so far under what we've provisioned for that I know we're way, way, way under. And I know, you know, we haven't been buying clothes, we haven't been going anywhere, so why buy clothes?
Yeah.
Right? So I know our spending's way, way under, so that's something that I need to tighten up on. And now that probably I'd say 90% of our bills and things are all swapped over to the credit card, then now I can actually start doing the checkups. So yeah, I haven't been doing the checkups just yet.
Oh, look,
There's
it's
a couple
great
things
when you get there because you will have even further visibility. So,
Yeah.
you know, but you're remembering it's an annualized system and you're ahead, so you can take those luxuries. So why not?
Yeah.
A couple of points too, to remember that people who are not very good with credit cards, Renae, they don't need to have a credit card within the system. Obviously, it's interest rate optimization by using it, but it's not 100% necessary. So it's interesting that you overcame that and used it, which I think would be interesting to get your feedback. And also, done is better than perfect, I think. Is
I need to remind myself of that. Yeah.
which is cool. Hey, listen, as we sort of work towards wrapping up, what I find is interesting is the whole goal of Money Smarts is for people to have, on the book we called it financial peace, and it's just that we wanted to create a feeling that people have that they are in control of their money. So it was interesting to talk to you about the fact that it was a stressor. It's no longer a stressor now. You feel like it's adding value to your life. What's interesting is you now have an ability to trap surplus and invest it into property. So how do you feel about, you know, using that surplus and creating additional assets into your balance sheet so that ultimately you can achieve this $2,000 per week? And when you do, what will that mean for your family?
Oh, I can't wait. The house that we're currently in is our primary residence, and we have sort of factored that into the plan and deciding whether or not we're going to keep that as an investment or sell it. And because the market's doing what it's doing at the moment, and because working with our planner, he's suggested that it's probably a good idea to sell. So we're going to sell it just because it was never bought as an investment, and we can recoup our costs on it because the market's doing well. So we're probably going to sell that, and then then we're going to build again and put our big rock in the jar as our own home and then start the investment journey. But I cannot wait until we start it, because I now understand that growing up, it was always, you know, get rid of your debt as quick as you can, pay off your mortgage as quick as you can. Whereas now I understand that you can actually make money work for you, and you can. I always remember I think on one of the episodes you said it, Bryce, about horrible, tolerable and productive debt. And I've always tried to remind myself of that, to go, this is productive debt. It's actually smart debt. And the story about, I think you tell about the kid who says, oh, we're so poor, we've got $100,000 worth of debt. Oh, we're so rich, we've got $1 million worth of debt. You know, that whole concept of debt's not necessarily a bad thing. So I'm really looking forward to investing and seeing that equity grow, and then being able to, I guess, make money work for us. Is just going to be, you know, the cherry on top for this whole money journey. Is you actually start to see the fruit of your labour, I suppose. So we're very much at the start of the journey, and we haven't purchased all our properties by any means. We're at the start of the accumulation phase, but I know when we're going to, in our plan, I know the year that we will be buying our first property and the subsequent properties. So it's just a waiting game to go. Just keep doing what you're doing. Everything's working as it is. The surplus is growing, and then when we finally get to execute, it'll be exciting. Yeah.
Renae, I love the way you summarise that, because you're giving yourself the privilege, because you are organising your money to trap that surplus, to actually consider leverage and use people's money for the privilege of making more money for you and your family. You know, we don't want people to think that you just go into debt and debt's for everyone and you go crazy. Because you're doing the hard yards in organising and getting into a system of managing your money, you've got the confidence to basically say, you know what, I can use sensible debt for productivity outcomes, which are going to benefit the family, and, you know, we'll achieve what we want to achieve. When you come back to the original story you were telling yourself, is you didn't think it was possible.
No.
You know, no, well, now you do, and it's all because you've made the invisible visible. You've you've taken action by discovering and educating yourself on the knowledge that's needed, and you're empowering yourself because you're now acting on it. So, all power to you. It's a wonderful, wonderful story, and it's really just beginning for you as well.
Thank you. Just on that, just a little story of my old mindset was, I remember when we very first, well, probably before we bought our house, we built our house, the current house. And before we built, I was sort of writing, I was actually fairly young. It was probably 10 years ago or something. I was writing down notes and some goals that I wanted. And I thought to myself, I'd love to have my home. I'd love to buy a house, which before then I thought was not achievable in itself, but I thought I'd love to buy a home and I'd love to have that paid off by the time I'm 40, which was an outrageous dream. I thought, oh, gee, and I felt this little nudge and I thought, you know what, 35, I want to have my house paid off by the time I'm 35, which is just, outrageous. I thought, I have no idea how we're going to do that. But at the time I pictured that as we're just going to save, work, and just pay down our mortgage as quick as we can until we have one house that's fully paid off. And now, knowing what I know now, I'm sure that we'll probably be on track to have our house paid, I say that in inverted commas, paid off. It's not that we'll be paying off our mortgage. It's just that the value of our properties and our equity and that sort of thing, I'm sure that we will own, so to speak, the equivalent of what paying down a house is. I just now understand that it's not about just getting one mortgage and paying it off, because that's, you talk about lazy money. That's lazy money just sitting there that could be working harder for me. So I understand all that now, and I've got a lot more understanding to go, but I'm super thankful that I now understand that to be true, rather than just that narrow mindset of just get a house paid off. So thanks to you guys.
Thanks to you for tuning in.
Correct, and it's your work. It's your work. We've just our goal in doing what we do is to, if you've got knowledge, you've got an opportunity, right? I mean, that's no different than how societies function and everyone prospers. If you get a good education, that gives you the best opportunity to have, a standard of living and a lifestyle that you want to aspire to. And we've always said that this is all about education, but we can put it out there, and if it's just like the dam, if the horse doesn't go down to the dam side and drink the water, it's no good for anyone, right? No good for the horse if they don't do that. So you've done an amazing job in terms of taking action on that.
Yeah, that's incredible effort. I've got no doubt, Renae, based on and chatting with you over the last half an hour or so, that you will implement what's in the plan. You will do it on the date, and you will actually achieve your goals by the dates that you set it out. So the final one for me is two things. One, thanks for being so brave to be honest and transparent about your own journey. Not everyone finds it comfortable to talk about that. So you will be surprised about how many people will listen to your story and get value out of it, and it might be the trigger for them to actually kickstart what they want. But final one for you is, do you have any questions for me and Ben?
I do. I have two questions. One's micro and one's macro. The micro one is, as far as the portal is concerned, I've got issues with, so there's a section that asks for business profits because my husband owns his own business. And so we entered in that amount, but that is displaying in our total income. Is there a way to stop that? Because we haven't necessarily taken that as PAYG income ourselves, it's still sitting in the business. So is there a way that you can stop that displaying so it doesn't affect your...
I'll have a go at this. So what the portal is about the household position, not necessarily about the business position. So if you think about it, that the business, if you're a sole trader, we're interested in income because technically that's your income and then you've got your expenses out of that. But when it comes to company or in corporations or partnerships or whatever, we want to treat that as a separate entity. And so what we're just interested in is the income that's going to arrive into the household. And in the simulator, if it comes in as income as a salary, the system's smart enough to do the tax treatments and so forth. When it comes in as profit, we will assume it as tax paid. So we will treat that as net income. So we could probably take that offline and I'll step you through it. But if you think about it, and this is for the broader community, if you want to use the platform for self-employed, is some people do get caught up in putting their business income in the platform and technically put their business expenses in there. Well, that's not the household. You know,
Yeah.
you're running a business as opposed to choosing to be in PAYG work, that's fine. All we're interested in terms of what is the gross income or net income coming into the household, and then that should fix that problem in terms of whether you're overstating income or understating income.
And I think it occurred there once we refinanced, and because we own our own business, obviously the bank's quite interested in that.
Yeah.
Put that in there. So maybe it's just a matter of we can take that out now that we've refinanced.
It's a very good question, because the portal also acts as a tool to allow us to do the lending assessments through our business, right? So they are needed for a lending assessment in terms of gross expenditure for the application for the loan. But you're right, in terms of money smarts, we're really only interested in the household income.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And my other question is a lot more macro question, and that is, I'm interested to know your quick thoughts on the education system, as in schools and finance. So growing up at school, I had very little, I went to a public school, and I had very little financial education. Luckily, you know, my dad was good with money, and, you know, and it's been wired within me, so I've sought my own education. But I actually studied teaching at uni, and I'm not currently teaching, but I'm just sort of thinking about how my two loves, I guess, of, you know, teaching and finance can sort of come together. But I'm really interested in your views on our current education system, and from primary school right through to high school, and where you think we can improve, and, you know, just, yeah, your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think that the school system is in parts outdated. It still relies on teaching people how to remember stuff, whereas now the way that we've moved on is that is no longer the way that we learn going forward. I even, you know, Ben and I were having a chat before about, well, not before, but previously, about why you wouldn't necessarily need to let your kids understand a language, because it won't be long before an app just does it all for them, right? So I think there needs to be some evolution of the schooling system to catch up to the way that we live our lives. So, and that's a big project, right? And full respect to anyone who's a teacher or who's setting syllabuses, because I understand that's a big ship to turn around. But I certainly think that there is a massive gap in real life skills around how to manage money, how to have relationships, how to have crucial conversations with people, how to be really clear about what's important so that I can feel secure in myself. I think, you know, don't get me started, but I think that there's, I think there is definitely an opportunity for us to bring real life skills into my kids. My youngest were driving along. He goes, "Dad, can you just ask Siri what I can't remember, because he has sport on Thursdays, and he gets distressed if he hears the weather report on a Monday that Thursday is going to be poor weather." Because that's his favourite day. He wears his sports uniform. So I made the mistake, right? He goes, "Dad, can you ask Siri what the weather's going to be on Thursday?" So I pressed the button on the steering wheel, and then all of a sudden it was raining, and he started crying, right? So I won't fall into that again. But the point is, the kids are now asking for information in a totally different way to the way that we would do that. I tried to explain them what a Funk and Wagnall's encyclopedia was the other day, and I think they fell asleep after about the third sentence, right? So there needs to be some evolution around getting crucial bits of information into our schooling system, so that our future generations are equipped, because there's no need to teach them how to remember stuff anymore, because it's now an insights age, not an information age. There's so much information that's available at the drop of a hat to be able to learn, be critical thinkers, and be able to turn that into insights.
Yeah, look, we know that Paul Clitheroe and even Zoe Effie Zahos is also on the Financial Literacy Council, and they are working with the school education system to try and. Paul told us that it's very difficult to add extra things into the syllabus when it's already a cramped syllabus, right? So what they're trying to do is to sort of say, well, inside that syllabus, a practical application of teaching them how to make a decision on that should be some good math and the opportunity cost of things like that. So they're trying to weave it in through practical applications. And I know with our two boys, you know, when they're doing their math at home, the way they teach math is slightly different to us in terms of we got to, you know, rote learn it, we learn our times tables and blah, blah, blah. They're trying to problem solve, and that is the future in terms of, so I see that happening, but I also come back to what Bryce was saying in terms of the digital transformation and the intelligence of simulators and modeling software and potentially voice AI is going to radically transform households, where it's not beyond belief that in 5 to 10 years that you will have a virtual money assistant that you can talk to, that has access to all of your financial data and can on the spot give you a decision about what we're talking about as consequential finance. We've used the language of, and that is basically, what is the impact of the decision before I make the decision? So that is scary in terms of where we're going to get to. So it's a bit like, the next generation of babies being born probably will never learn how to drive, because the cars will come and pick them up and they'll sit in the back and they'll be productive because they won't need to drive and it'll be safer for them. So it's scary in terms of the radical change that will happen. So that said, I think the fundamentals of understanding math is critical, and if you don't, you won't get a job in the digital world, right? So I think there's something in there also for STEM in terms of, and problem solving around the sciences, technology, engineering and math, right? That's the future. So I think from that point of view, there's a lot to be had, and it's going to be challenging, but it's the right conversations we need to be having. So I appreciate you raising it, Renae.
That's good.
Hey, Renae, thanks again for joining us on the Property Couch. It was fascinating to have that chat with you. I certainly hope that our community has benefited from hearing your story. And thanks for coming onto the couch.
Thank you for having me. It was a privilege. Thank you.
How good was that, Ben? I really enjoyed that. She was articulate, and despite the fact that money was a stressor, and she's across it, she understands her numbers, but is really finding a fair bit of peace in having a system that really underpins the decisions that they're making.
Enjoys it. From my point of view, when she was talking about breaking the sort of mindset shift, so there's a lesson in that. But really, once she got her North Star, which is around, plan to become what you plan to become, it all just locked in. It all made sense to her in terms of having the freedom and control, which is what we always talk about once you make the invisible visible. So all credit to Renae and Nick. They're shooting the lights out, and they've got an exciting future ahead of them.
We've got a very exciting future. So Renae, on behalf of the Property Couch, thank you for joining us on the summer series. I think it was a great conversation. I think you're going to really inspire a lot of people who can find something in your story that relates to them, so that they can be transformed in their money. And hopefully Ben will be chatting to them next year at Summer Series, and they said, oh look, I listened to Renae, and that was something that really gave me some inspiration to transform my own life, which is really good. So Ben, this Summer Series is going to keep going. We're enjoying having it. We're enjoying showcasing more stories. So until next one,
knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.
Hey there, folks. Ben here. I hope you're enjoying the summer series. I've got a couple of really important messages for you. First up, I want to let you know that we're giving away our best-selling book. That's right, our best-selling book, Make Money Simple Again. And it teaches you how to run the Money Smart system inside the MyWealth Portal. Now, best of all, as part of the free book offer, you also get a free account on the MyWealth Portal. Now, there's over 28,000 people who are using the portal to advance their money management skills and to make their money work harder for them. Now, where do you find this information? It's simple. You go to thepropertycouch.com.au/summer series. But wait, there's more. I also want to tell you about our TPC survey. So our Property Couch, we're doing a survey so we can bring 2021 the best shows that we've ever bought before. So that survey was going to ask you about what the show you want, how we're showing up, the positives, the negatives, what we can improve, what you want us to talk about next year. That's what we're about. Now, the best part about that is there's a $500 credit to be won as part of Select Residential Property. That's right, we're giving you the chance to win a $500 credit for filling out the survey. Now, the survey can also be found at thepropertycouch.com.au/summer series. Why not check it out? And before I go, I've got to remind you, that the information provided, it is not financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before making or acting on any information. And don't forget, final call, thepropertycouch.com.au/summer series, where you can get our free best-selling book, or you can also complete our survey for next year's shows.